It is the Week 10 Columbia Football Coaches Show presented by Amity Hall Uptown as Columbia wraps up its season in Ithaca for the annual Empire State Bowl as the Lions have won the last 4 meetings. Lions Meadow with you here on GoColumbiaLions.com. As always, joined by head coach John Poppe. And John, let's recap the heartbreaker to Brown, 32-29. Though I want to start with the positives. You put up a season-high 29 points, and second half you had 6 possessions, and you scored 4 touchdowns out of those possessions. What changed in the second half in your mind in terms of the ability to sustain drives and specifically finish, especially in that red zone?
Yeah, some of it was field position, right? We had the block punt, turned it right into a touchdown.
Yep.
And then in the first half, I thought we moved the ball and just kind of got in our own way at times. You know, I felt we had a touchdown converted on the 4th and 8 if we just go more aggressively towards the football in that initial drive. And then we have a third down situation where we mishandle a snap and it turns into a punt, which we can't do and have in those crucial situations because we're going to punch that ball forward and get that first down, and we're probably going to go in and score just based on how the rest of the game played with us being so effective on the ground game and then mixing in the air when we had the opportunities to.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the ground game because Michael Walters went over the century mark. He set the freshman rookie record, and he was consistent, a lot of hard runs, a lot of hard yardage. How much did that open things up in your mind for the rest of the offense?
Yeah, and we knew going in Brown's safeties were going to fit towards the run. So we would have some shots down the field where we had isolated coverage with our receivers versus their corners. And I thought Michael did a great job. The O-line did a great job of working their double teams to the second and creating distortion for those linebackers so they couldn't really fit. There wasn't a space to go, and Michael just did a great job of hitting the holes with speed and finding the open gaps, so to speak, and putting his head down and finishing forward more consistently this past week.
And that's the difference between a 3rd and a 5 versus a 3rd and a 4. All of that stuff adds up. And then, of course, in the passing game, Beckett Robinson really serving as a great complement, John, to Titus Evans, who had another pair of touchdowns. But, you've been talking about it behind closed doors in the public about how excited you are about what Beckett Robinson provides. What can he take away from this experience down the stretch to then roll over to next season?
Yeah, we're going to get in positions to catch the football, right? All our receivers, if we're executing the ground game like we're capable of doing, it's going to create one-on-one opportunities for our receivers, and it's really for them just being at the landmark at the right time. Beckett missed some landmarks, but was still able to. Chase did a great job putting the ball where he could catch it, and I think for him, it's not taking anything for granted. When I get open, I feel like I run by a guy knowing that there's great effort on the defensive side to let him come in and make a play at the end and really be aggressive towards that football. And then at the end of the game, as we know in the final offensive play, ball security, keeping that ball high and shinning it, as we call it, with that 5 points of ball security. I even seen him yesterday. He's working on it. So.
Well, that's an interesting aspect because, as great as he played in the one-handed 2-point conversion and the play inside the 5 and then, of course, the touchdown that he goes up, unfortunately, that turned out to be a back-breaking play because you lost out on a potential possession to tie the game or win it. What's the conversation you have with him outside of X's and O's fundamentals, John, for him to not wear himself down over putting that on his shoulders that essentially the loss was on that play?
Yeah, teachable moment. Right, for a young guy in more or less his 2nd or 3rd varsity game, right? Just don't hang your head, right? Focus on the good in that situation, that you're never going to let that happen again, right? That in that 2-minute situation, hey, we don't have timeouts. Catch the ball, spin, get to the sideline, right? Get out of bounds. Don't try to make this crazy, spectacular play. Make the smart play and give our offense a chance to align again, play football again, whether it's, again, chinning the football or, more importantly, getting out of bounds in that crucial situation. That's where really he's got to learn and take from it and find the good that I made a lot of great plays, and now I know what I need to do moving forward to become an even better football player.
On the topic of wide receivers, let's flip the script because Brown had a number of big plays through the air, and their receiving core had a lot of size. You knew that going in. Ty Pezzett, Tyler Foley seemed to win a number of 50-50 balls, John. How much, looking back, do you think that was a defining moment for Brown's offense to be able to consistently move the chains?
Yeah, it just seems like every time James Murphy put the ball in the air, his guys were coming down with it. And we had our own opportunities to step in front of one. We had Josh Powell with a great quarterback hit, and just our linebackers weren't in maybe the area where that ball fluttered to, right? And, really with our safeties, we have to work, and we've been working this week where we're in our zone coverage. One guy's playing the football, one guy's playing the man. so you don't get in those situations where you have guys colliding into each other. And that's really where we lost out on one of those explosive pass plays. I think the 50-yarder to Tyler Foley down the middle of the field. We had two guys in coverage, but they're both kind of scrambling, and then Ty was able to overlap our kind of free player, and that's where we just got to be able to keep our wits about us and make that play and fall back on what we're coached to do and what we do in practice.
You mentioned Josh Powell with the hit. One of the things we talked about last week in previewing this game was Brown has given up its fair share of sacks, right? 24. You did get 2, but I'm curious, how much did you think maybe there was more to be done, John, up front to fluster Murphy, to not give him that clean ability to make those targets down the field?
Yeah, and I think as you look back as coaches, right, how did these explosive plays occur? And you look back, and a lot of them are on those first downs, 1st and 10 downs. And that's where we need to be better as coaches as we're feeling the game flow. Where's this offense taking their shots? Where do we need to be less predictable or less base defense and create some generate some pass rush and create some negative plays for them? And that's where we as coaches need to be better. And that's where I think Brown won the game, is those first, especially on their offensive side, hitting their big plays in those 1st and 10 situations. The 1st and 21 is really the backbreaker in my mind as well, where we get the holding call and then they hit a play for 40 yards down the field. Like, that can't happen, because we have to play smart coverage, on the top, and our guys got to be able to make, that play in that situation.
Because you put them in a negative situation, and all of a sudden, the flip of the switch, they now get great field positioning. That, once again, is another thing that certainly adds up. With respect to negative plays, there were 3 turnovers on your part. 2 of them came late in respective halves, so there's not much to analyze in terms of points off the turnovers. But your special teams came through, John, with a pair of block kicks. Mason Robinson after the mishandled snap by the punter, and then, of course, Caleb Solomon with a huge blocked field goal. What type of a lift did special teams provide to keep you within striking distance and continue to give yourself some maybe extra at-bats based on how that game was flowing?
Yeah, that was a great job by Caleb Solomon coming off the bench, right? Offense on the field, and we did alert the team, hey, we're taking a shot because there's 14 seconds left in the half. There's not much risk, so to speak, when you think about it that way. And Caleb did a great job being prepared and trimmed the fat off that edge, got a great jump, and it was teach tape in terms of his block there. That was an awesome play, and you felt excited for him because he's been so close in recent weeks. Not many people know that, but he has been so close to blocking a kick. It was great to see him finally get one. And then Mason Robinson did a great job coming off the edge of their Brown protection and really trimming the fat again, and did a great job in terms of being aware. Yes, he could have tackled the punter, but the punter was in process of trying to punt it, and Mason did a great job putting low hands right to the foot and came away with a great block to almost give us a chance to scoop and score and maybe create a touchdown just off that play.
I know obviously we've brought up this topic time and time again. You've been so close, a play here or there. What is your ultimate takeaway and message to the team following a game like this, where it was one of your best offensive performances, you finished drives, but again, it just didn't seem, John, to be good enough, and there's no tangible results, at least in the win column, for them to feed off of?
Yeah, I mean, it's all about consistency, and you see how hard it is to win.
Yeah.
It's not easy. I know everyone thinks it's kind of easy and all, we're just going to show up and win games. It doesn't work that way. You have to be at your best every single snap. Not to say you're going to win every snap, but you have to be at your best and make the plays where it's supposed to be a gain of 5, make it for 5. Don't let it go for 8. And that just seems to be our story a little bit on defense. And offense, when you have the one-on-one opportunities, right? They happen pretty infrequently. And Becker Robinson, 4th and 8, go attack the football. Don't take it for granted that you are winning that race by 2 strides. Rabbit and turtle, right? Don't assume anything and go make the play when they're there to be made. And that's really been our message to the team, that we're capable of playing great football, but it has to be every single snap. We can't relax. We can't be complacent. We can't be, panicking. We have to treat each snap as its own and bring your best.
Similar to what we saw with some of those Brown wide receivers, Beckett Robinson, maybe a penalty happens, and once again, the flow of the game changes perhaps in the second half in terms of the Bears' approach. All right, we'll step aside. When we come back, we're going to turn our attention to the finale, Columbia against Cornell, an opportunity for them to snap their 7-game skid, and why there's some familiarity with this opponent based on what Columbia runs. Stay tuned. It's the Week 10 Columbia Football Coaches Show, presented by Amity Hall Uptown.
Amity Hall Uptown is the premier sports destination on the Upper West Side and the official home to Columbia University Athletics. Located just 951 steps from campus, Amity Hall is and will always be your home away from home.
Welcome back to the Week 10 Columbia Football Coaches Show presented by Amity Hall Uptown. As we now look ahead to the annual Empire State Bowl, it's going to be Columbia and Cornell to wrap up the season in Ithaca. And, John, I want to start with just the meaning of this game because this is a rivalry game just by default, and your program has won 4 straight, so you've had recent success against Cornell. Even though it may not mean a lot from a standings perspective, how meaningful would it be for this team to end the season off on a high note?
Yeah, a variety of reasons it's meaningful, right? Because of our seniors, trying to send them out as winners, right? And retain a trophy. Who doesn't like bringing home trophy and hardware? And really just giving us tremendous momentum going into the offseason, right? For the young guys and how young we are that, okay, we tasted some success at the end. We ended on a high note. We showed who we can be, and now let's build off of this.
I want to build off of your last statement because there's a number of people that would debate whether or not anything at the tail end of a season is actually meaningful for the following season. Case in point, you won an Ivy League title last year. Different story this year. So I'm curious what your stance is on that, John, in terms of the substance of truly can things and messages that develop in the last 2 or 3 games truly register and resonate with the players that they remember that as they approach what you're going to do this offseason?
Yeah, I think there is, right? Evidence that a win helps you at the end, right? And obviously results are results in terms of 6 months later, but it doesn't defeat the fact of how hard our guys worked, right, this offseason. And yes, the results have not shown the way we all hoped it would or expected it would, but there is things you can carry in terms of momentum, in terms of positive energy into this thing. And if Cornell ends up winning, well, we're going to have a different type of energy coming in with a different type of mindset in the sense of we're not taking anything for granted, right? This offseason, we're going to make sure that we're all in the same business-like mentality of everything truly matters, and it's still, even if we win, that's going to be the case. But there is an aggressiveness and a motivation factor, in my opinion, heading into the offseason with a win.
Let's delve into the matchup with Cornell. I see a lot of parallels with Dartmouth because Cornell has a mobile quarterback who has scored a rushing touchdown in 7 straight games and also some conventional backs that could do damage. How much perhaps is the Dartmouth game, regardless of how that played out, maybe good film for what Cornell's going to present between the dynamics of their signal caller and their running back?
Yeah, Coach Swanstrom does a great job of spreading the wealth, so to speak, and he's going to find situational moments where, all right, your linebackers are going to flow a little bit too aggressively, and I'm going to leak this tight end out. And last year they did it versus us, and tight end ended up dropping the football. And that's where I think Coach Swanstrom does a great job of those in-game moments, kind of playing your aggressiveness against you. You got panic mode, their tempo, right? That's where Dartmouth and them are a little bit different with the tempo, but the running style is very, very similar. 12 personnel, 11 personnel, zone-based scheme, a lot of quarterback run options, sure. And that's where we have to be great in terms of our assignments, our football, and making sure our keys and our eyes are in the right places at all times.
You've gone up against a number of Russian quarterbacks. We've talked about it, John, each week. Is this a good test to see whether or not all of that talking and all of that breaking down has now applied to the finale right here at the end of the season?
I certainly hope so. I certainly hope so that we're ready to just stick to our jobs, do it at the best of our ability, and really limit ball carriers' forward movement on contact, right? And do a great job of pursuit to the football, rallying to the football as a collective group. That's what I'm really hoping for this week as we finish this season.
You brought up their tight end. Ryder Kurtz is an All-American, 6'5" frame, big guy. You just played, as we talked about, a number of big, tall wide receivers for Brown. What's the key in challenging a big-time tight end like that who happens to be their number 1 target in the passing game?
Yeah, you just got to be aware where he's aligned. Right, they do try to focus him, or he is a major part of their offense, whether in the run game, securing edges, or it's in the pass game down the seams and doing some double move stuff in certain situations, or leaking them out in the red zone, trying to hide them, so to speak. So you just got to be aware where he is and have tight coverage. And the quarterback does do a good job of throwing the ball high for him to jump up and catch it. You saw it in the Dartmouth game down the seam in a 2-minute drill. And so really for us, it's playing physical through the football in those moments, right? Punching that ball out through the entirety of the play.
The one statistic, John, that has jumped out to me about Cornell is they're one of the best teams in tallying first downs this season. They're right up there with Harvard, and they're actually good in terms of limiting first downs as well. Is that a product of the pacing that you were referring to? Why have they been able to at least put themselves in good positioning because of all of these first downs that they're accumulating over the course of the season.
Yeah, when their offense is rolling, he's going fast, right? He is. And Coach Wanstrom, I'm talking about Cornell offense, and Coach Hatcher, their OC, right, by title. And they do a great job of that. And then I think they're doing the smart things at the end of games, right? You see it at Princeton, the 4-minute. You see it at Penn, the 4-minute. Really grind the clock and finding those formations where they can run the ball on you. They do a good job, a great job, I should say, of manipulating formations, even with the same run scheme. And that's where we have to be great assigning and playing physical football to our gaps.
Cornell was one of the hottest teams in the Ivy League before they lost to Dartmouth last week. They had won 4 in a row. They put up 39 points against a really good Penn team. They took Brown, who you just played, to double overtime and won. Some would say that, well, if one team beats another team, it doesn't necessarily mean much of anything. What do you take away at all, John, in terms of Cornell and how productive they've been, maybe more so than in previous seasons that we've seen out of this group?
Yeah, I mean, they've scored points in a lot of games, even go back to last year's Yale game. I mean, I think they put 40 on Yale, right? and so I think for us, again, it's playing our level of football, playing our assignments and doing everything we can do to control our successes, right? And however that plays out for Cornell, it plays out. But really for us, it's got to be we're doing our job and having our eyes in the right place, playing physical football, and seeing what happens. Can't turn it over on offense, right? That seems to be, when we don't do that, at least we have a shot in the fourth quarter as well. And that's where this team in the Penn game was able to kind of run that score, with that turnover on the strip sack.
Yeah, because that obviously gives you a favorable field position, and they were able to make the Quakers pay. Well, John, listen, it was a pleasure all season. I can't thank you enough. I wish you the best of luck, and I hope Mother Nature cooperates in Ithaca, New York this weekend.
Lance, thanks so much. Appreciate you.
You got it. Absolutely. So that is going to wrap up our Columbia Football Coaches Show for the season, presented by Amity Hall Uptown. It is Cornell and Columbia. It's a 1 p.m. Eastern kickoff in Ithaca, and you can watch it on ESPN+. Thanks for tuning in all season. Appreciate it, everyone.